The little boy came running into the roadside diner with tears streaming down his dusty cheeks, his tiny sneakers slipping across the floor as he desperately searched the room for someone who would believe him. He stopped beside a table occupied by a group of bikers, grabbed the sleeve of the nearest man, and whispered words that instantly silenced the entire room. "They took my sister." For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the bikers stood up together. They did not ask the boy to prove it. They did not tell him to wait. They simply listened, because the fear in his eyes was impossible to ignore. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can create second chances and that people should never ignore someone who needs help, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people. It was a bright Saturday afternoon in the small town of Willow Creek, where the streets were busy with families, cyclists, delivery trucks, and tourists stopping at roadside stores. Outside the Bluebird Diner, a row of motorcycles stood beneath the clear daylight. Their riders had gathered for lunch during a long weekend ride. They looked intimidating from a distance, with leather jackets, heavy boots, and helmets resting on the tables, but inside the diner they were simply tired travelers enjoying sandwiches and cold drinks. Among them was a broad-shouldered man named Dorian Hale, a quiet 42-year-old mechanic who had spent most of his life fixing engines and helping people without expecting anything in return. Beside him sat Malik Rowan, a cheerful 38-year-old rider who could make almost anyone smile, while two younger members, Everett and Silas, listened to their conversation. Nobody noticed the little boy outside at first. He was 7-year-old Milo Mercer, and he had been running for several minutes without knowing where else to go. His brown hair was messy, his blue t-shirt was dusty, and one shoelace had come loose. His breathing was uneven as he pushed through the diner door. He looked around at the unfamiliar faces until his eyes landed on the bikers. Something about their group made him believe they might be strong enough to help. Milo walked directly toward Dorian. His voice was so quiet that Dorian almost missed it. The boy repeated that his older sister had been taken while they were walking home from the community library. Dorian immediately crouched down so they were at eye level and calmly asked Milo to tell him what happened. The boy explained that his 12-year-old sister, Elara, had been walking beside him when a dark vehicle pulled over nearby. Two strangers approached them and told Milo to stay where he was. He became frightened and ran toward the nearest busy road, but when he looked back, Elara was no longer there. Milo had spent the last several minutes searching for help, but every adult he approached seemed too busy or too confused to understand what he was saying. Dorian looked at Malik, and the joking expression disappeared from his friend's face. The entire table became serious. They knew they needed to act quickly, but they also knew that panic would only make things worse. Dorian asked the diner owner to call emergency services and provide the boy with water. He then asked Milo to describe the direction the vehicle had gone, the color of the vehicle, and anything he remembered about the people involved. Milo pointed toward the eastern road. His hands were trembling as he tried to remember the details. He mentioned a faded blue van, a broken rear light, and a sticker on the back window. It was not much, but it was enough for the adults to pass along to authorities. Dorian stayed beside Milo, reassuring him that he was not alone anymore. Malik stepped outside and looked toward the road while Everett spoke with the diner owner. Silas checked the nearby streets from a safe distance, carefully following the instructions of emergency responders rather than rushing into an unknown situation. Within minutes, local authorities arrived and began gathering information. Milo was frightened, but Dorian remained nearby, giving him something steady to focus on. The boy kept asking whether his sister was safe. Dorian could not promise something he did not know, but he told Milo that everyone was working together to find her. Then Milo suddenly remembered something important. He had noticed a large white bird painted on the side of the blue van. The detail was immediately passed to the authorities. Officers began checking nearby roads and businesses for cameras that might have captured the vehicle. The bikers were asked to remain available as witnesses, and they agreed without hesitation. They knew the authorities had the training and resources to handle the situation, but they also knew that every minute mattered. Dorian sat beside Milo on the diner bench while the boy stared at the front door. He was trying hard to be brave. Finally, he admitted that he felt guilty because he had run away. Dorian gently explained that being frightened did not make him responsible for what happened. Milo looked down at his hands, and for the first time since entering the diner, his shoulders relaxed slightly. Outside, the afternoon remained bright and ordinary. Cars continued passing. People walked along the sidewalks. Yet inside the diner, everyone was waiting for news. About 20 minutes later, an officer returned with an update. A traffic camera had captured a vehicle matching Milo's description traveling toward an industrial district on the edge of town. Another camera had recorded the same vehicle a few minutes later. Authorities were moving toward the area and requested that everyone stay clear of the investigation. Dorian wanted to do more, but he understood that helping sometimes meant knowing when to step back. He remained with Milo. Then another call came. The authorities had located the vehicle. The officers had also found Alara. She was frightened and shaken, but she was safe. The entire diner seemed to release one enormous breath. Milo jumped to his feet, tears filling his eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief. He asked whether he could see his sister. The officers arranged for him to reunite with Alara safely with their guardian present. When the siblings finally saw each other, Milo ran into Alara's arms. She hugged him tightly, and for several seconds neither child said anything. They simply held on to each other. Dorian watched from a respectful distance, his eyes becoming moist. Alara later explained that she had been taken to another location but had managed to alert someone nearby, which helped authorities locate her quickly. Because Milo had remembered the vehicle's unusual markings and the community had responded immediately, the search had moved much faster than it otherwise might have. The bikers never considered themselves heroes. They had simply been eating lunch when a scared child walked through their door. But that afternoon reminded them of something they had learned many times on the road: sometimes the most important journey is the one you take for someone else. Before leaving, Milo walked back toward Dorian. He held out a small folded piece of paper. On it, he had drawn several motorcycles, a blue sky, and two children standing beside each other. At the top, in uneven handwriting, he had written two words: "Thank you." Dorian looked at the drawing for a long moment. He told Milo that he did not need to thank anyone for helping him. Then he told the boy something he would remember for the rest of his life: being brave did not mean never being afraid. Sometimes bravery meant asking for help when you needed it. The bikers eventually climbed onto their motorcycles, but before leaving town, they waited until Milo and Alara were safely reunited with their family. Malik joked that their lunch had gone cold, and everyone laughed softly. It was a small moment, but after such a frightening afternoon, even a simple laugh felt precious. Days later, the story spread throughout Willow Creek. People talked about the little boy who refused to stop searching for help and the strangers who listened when he needed someone most. But Dorian always corrected anyone who called the bikers heroes. He said the real lesson was that Milo had trusted his instincts, asked for help, and remembered important details under pressure. The community had then worked together with trained authorities to bring his sister home safely. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal. Yet every Saturday afternoon, Milo and Alara sometimes visited the Bluebird Diner with their family. The bikers were not always there, but whenever they happened to cross paths, Milo would smile and wave. One sunny afternoon, Milo arrived carrying another drawing. This time, it showed a long road beneath a clear blue sky. At the side of the road stood a group of motorcycles, and beside them were two small figures holding hands. Dorian smiled when he saw it. The picture did not show anyone as a superhero. There were no capes, no dramatic victories, and no impossible miracles. It simply showed people choosing to stop when someone needed help. And perhaps that was the most beautiful part of the whole story. Because sometimes kindness does not arrive with a grand announcement. Sometimes it walks through a diner door wearing a dusty t-shirt and carrying nothing but a frightened voice. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to listen. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Kindness Corner 2.0. Every engagement helps these stories reach people who may need a reminder that compassion still exists. And before the story ends, leave this special comment: I will never ignore someone who needs help. Because Milo's story was never really about motorcycles or strangers. It was about the moment when fear met kindness, and kindness chose not to look away. That afternoon, a little boy walked into a diner believing he was completely alone. He walked out knowing something he would never forget. There are still people in this world who will stop everything to help someone in need.